After working in an Apple store for 10 years, I've finally been let loose to talk freely about Apple products, so it's only fitting that I start with my favourite category of product that Apple has ever released, the Airpods. And today I've got the Airpods 3 in the studio to share my opinion on them. So welcome back to another episode of STU'S Reviews. Now, I get that sound is massively subjective. One person might love heavier bass, another might enjoy a crispier tone, but in my opinion, AirPods are some of my favourite sounding earphones by a long shot. And I've tested a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. But it's not just the sound that makes these some of my favourite headphones. All of the amazing features that AirPods debuted with made them an experience like nothing else I'd ever experienced at the time. Back in 2016, nearly every headphone or earphone experience had either some form of wire or really clunky Bluetooth pairing experience. These things introduced a new way of life completely. Instant one-touch pairing between multiple Apple products, sensors that know if they're in your ear or not, and incredible microphones considering their position on your head, and most importantly, these were all packaged in unbelievably small form factors for the time. If anything, they kicked off a completely new industry of TWS earphones, or at the very least made them a common sight in people's ears. And now, 5 years later, AirPods are still unmatched in many capabilities. Sure, there are manufacturers who caught up in areas such as sound quality, better battery life, implementing various pieces of tech such as touch sensors. But the wireless connectivity is simply unmatched, which is largely a benefit of the entire Apple ecosystem. And now, with their latest release, the technology has taken another leap forward, whilst the rest of the industry just seems to be a bit of a standstill. But before we get on to the sound of these things, let's pick apart some of the technological changes. Now, one of the most unusual, but perhaps most impressive, is the new in-ear detection. In the past, AirPods detected ears through a simple proximity sensor. This in itself wasn't that impressive, although admittedly it was pretty cool to remove one from your ear and have music automatically pause if you needed to hear or speak to someone. The problem was if you decided to put the AirPod in a pocket for a few seconds. Perhaps you're trying to find your train ticket as the angry conductor is standing over you, breathing down your neck. Well, by putting it in your pocket, it would automatically think that it's in your ear again and start resuming the music, drowning out whatever abuse the train conductor is hurling at you for using a off-peak ticket during peak travel times. Now, what's special about the new sensor is that it can actually detect the difference between skin and other materials, meaning that in the same situation, music won't start playing and will only resume when placed in the ear. I mean, come on, that's pretty cool. We've also got a better battery this time, which has been increased to 6 hours. And this is of listening time from fully charged in the case. And together with the case, it holds 30 hours of playtime. 6 hours of charge in one of these tiny devices is phenomenal. But it isn't the best I've come across. The Rolling Square 2, for example, can last up to around 9 hours on a single charge. But then on the other hand, they have significantly less tech built into them than AirPods, and certainly can't detect the difference between skin and clothes. Talking about batteries, wireless charging in the form of MagSafe is also a new addition to the case, although I'm not sure MagSafe is that important for AirPods, at the moment anyway. Now, what would have been a good idea, and this could be a bit of a telltale of what's to come, is if they included MagSafe, but the opposite of the phone rather than the same, so that the AirPods could have magnetised to the back in a form of reverse charging if your case ran out of juice. Bit of a missed opportunity here, although I guess there is a chance that this could still be a thing if more powerful devices with larger battery capacity, such as the MacBooks and iPads, had the opposite MagSafe for peripherals like Airpods to charge. Now there's already an example of this, to an extent anyway, with the 2nd gen Apple Pencil and the way it magnetizes to the iPad to charge and sync. I guess only time will tell if this is something Apple will implement, but I certainly hope it is. Now another new feature is the tactile buttons on the AirPods themselves. They've removed the ability to tap the side of them to control certain things and replaced this with a force touch button. Now, unfortunately, with this change, you can't customize what the buttons do, which is a change from the tap sensors in the 1st and 2nd gen, which essentially allowed customization in the settings to perform different actions. This, in my eyes, is a bit of a shame, but then I guess the aim here with the 3rd gen is, in my eyes, potentially a bit of a deeper interaction with Siri. Essentially, she's always listening now for the wait command, something which we saw added to the AirPods 2 but not in the original device. Since then, I guess Siri has become significantly more robust and to a certain extent proactive, meaning that she can read out notifications on arrival and listens automatically for your response to things like messages straight away without having to activate her again. Now, I've spoken about how I want more proactiveness in voice assistants before, and the AirPods 3 seem to be a great step towards this with this integration. So that's the technological feature changes out of the way. Let's move on to the sound. Now, the big change in the sound is a brand new low distortion driver with supposedly better range and slightly better bass. And this unarguably has been achieved with this redesign because they sound fantastic. Now, I've always loved AirPods sound, and I think they've offered some of the best clarity and range at almost all levels, and the 3rd gen have absolutely followed suit, building on the already incredible sound and making it even richer. But other than the new driver, there are 2 other inbuilt pieces of tech that have aided the sound improvement over the other ones. Firstly, the adaptive EQ, and secondly, spatial audio. Now, adaptive EQ was first seen in the AirPods Pro, and supposedly it adjusts frequencies to sound and suit the shape of your ear. It essentially uses the inwards-facing microphones to detect how the music sounds in the shape of your ear, changing it so that it adapts how the music is intended to sound to your ear, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not really sure how this is measurable or quantifiable from a consumer perspective, so I can't really make any specific comments on this, other than it hasn't really done any harm to what I'm listening to, that's for sure. But I know or recognise that audiophiles will want absolute control over their product, and probably won't be too happy with this, because to my knowledge, there's no way to turn off the adaptive EQ. But for the most of us with casual ear canals, it's likely not something that we would even pick up on, and you'll be more than happy with the sound that comes out of the adaptive EQ. Now, the tech that I feel makes the biggest difference in the AirPods 3 is the spatial audio. And again, this is another piece of technology that first made its appearance in the AirPods Pro. Now, for those people who are unfamiliar with spatial audio, when listening to compatible music, you have the option of listening in 2 types of spatial audio, tracked and fixed. The fixed essentially creates a 3D environment of music around you that moves with you, projecting instruments in a 3D soundscape. The head tracking option does the same, but it fixes that sound in 3D. So as you turn your head, it sounds like a particular instrument or sound is coming from a fixed point in space, like the corner of the room, for example. This sounds fantastic, especially if you're sat in a constant position like a chair. But when moving around, a fixed, for me, is far more suitable for a consistent sound. And to be honest, aside from testing, I haven't really used the head tracked option that much for music because I prefer that consistent audio experience that the 3D audio or spatial audio can give you when it's fixed and moves with you. One important thing to note here is that not all music is fully optimized for 3D spatial audio. When this is the case, you can choose to spatialize stereo sound. I found myself using this particular feature the most with video content, counterintuitively, because it sounds incredible with stereo spatial, especially when you're using the head tracking feature. The closest thing I can liken it to is being sat in a cinema. And that isn't just a throwaway comment. This genuinely sounds like you're sat in a gigantic cinema with audio blaring at you. It's incredible. I've been absolutely blown away with the stereo spatial audio for video content. That finishes my summary of the new changes in the Airpods 3, and I must say, it's all come together to make a huge improvement on the second gen. But, and there is a but, these changes have potentially come at a cost for some people. With the change in technology, the style of the Airpods has changed considerably as well. They're shorter and fatter than the original design, and if anything, they're very, very similar to the Pro now, just without the silicone tip. Now, I've always preferred the old style to the Pro design simply because I'm not a fan of shoving those silicone tips into my ear canal, and I found the original to be more than comfortable enough, and they fit extremely well for me. With the Airpods 3, the new design has changed the way they sit in the ear essentially because they are a little bit bigger. For me, I'm lucky in the fact that they still fit fine and don't come out even with vigorous movement, but I can imagine for some the increased size might make it a little bit more awkward, especially without the silicone tips that the Pro has to keep them more secure in the ears. But without speaking for you and without speaking for others in this scenario, it would be great to listen to you guys to find out what the general consensus is. If you've tried both the old style and the new style of AirPods, let us all know in the comments below if the new style fits you as well as the old style. Do you find it comfortable, or are they now too big for your ears? Let us all know in the comments below what your thoughts are, and let's find out the real impact of this design change from you guys. But there is one other concern that people might have from this design change, is how the audio sounds to other people when you're on things like phone calls with the shorter stalks. Well, as you can hear right now, I'm recording on the beam-forming mics, and it sounds good despite having to pick up my vocals around my jawline and beard. It's not perfect, but neither is it bad when considering the size of these things. Now let's talk about the price. When the original AirPods came out at $159, I actually thought they were extremely well priced, considering the quality and the functions. Sure, there are more expensive options out there, but after I tested a pair out right at the very start, I just had to buy a set of my own because they offered a level of quality and function that even earphones twice the price struggled to compete with in 2016. Even now, where the market is extremely competitive and quite a number of features from AirPods has found its way into other manufacturers' devices, they're still miles apart. The pricing of the third gen are only £10 more as well than the introductory price of the first and second gen when they came out. Do you know what? These things are spot on for value. That extra £10 amounts to wireless charging, spatial audio, adaptive EQ, proactive and responsive voice assistant, and others. These new advancements are worth every penny of that £10 increase. And I guess what's also a worthy mention is that the second gen AirPods have dropped to just £119, which is an absolute bargain, and they're still a really competitive product. Overall, it's fantastic that some of the amazing premium audio features that the AirPods Pro introduced have found its way filtering down into the standard range. And even some extra, like the new skin sensors that the AirPods Pro just don't have. I think the third gen AirPods are an incredible update to what I would have considered an already brilliant product, considering that the first and second gen AirPods are not just some of my favourite earphones available, but also some of my absolute favourite Apple devices ever released. The third gen have lived up to my expectations and in some ways even exceeded them. And if you have any Apple devices and want headphones to fit that ecosystem, it's very, very hard to recommend anything else. And that concludes my thoughts on the AirPods 3. As a reminder, if you've tried the AirPods 3rd Gen, let us all know how they fit, essentially to help us work out what the impact of the design changes are. And if you liked today's video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe and notification bell to see more, and I'll see you back for another episode of STU'S Reviews soon.